This Minecraft world was started on April 10th of 2022, the very day after I lost my 6,560-day world that I played full-time during COVID. From the very beginning, it has been one hell of a ride. So here's another long movie to share the journey with you. And it's a special one, because this is the last big milestone video before I beat my old record, if I don't die before then. Our journey on day 5001 starts with something a little strange. You might even call it silly. But after 5,000 days of not sleeping in this world, insomnia really got the better of me. My head was filled with waking dreams. Dreams of side quests. And eventually one hit me, a side quest so appealing that I just had to go for it. It all started with a simple thought. My world is finally starting to take shape. But building cool stuff isn't all that hard, and you have an infinite world full of easy to obtain blocks at your disposal. So what if I stripped all of that away and gave my viewers a skyblock series? Would they still like the things I built? And more importantly, would anyone figure out that in reality, they were still watching my hardcore series? Let's find out. And I better not fall off my island. After a little bit of research, I found a classic skyblock map that looks good, so I'll just claim that this is the map I'm playing. All I have to do is recreate its 3 core elements. The skyblock starter island, a nearby desert island made out of floating sand, and a nether island. The classic island and the nether island were fine, but this desert island proved to be a little more challenging than I had anticipated. Because this classic trick to create floating sand, unfortunately doesn't work anymore. So I used a piston glitch and some smooth sand blocks in the middle and hoped that I would be able to cover it up in the editing with aCookieGod. Between pre-linking the nether island and getting all the right items on the islands and in the chests, it was day 5005 when I was ready to start my skyblock challenge. All I had to do now was get rid of all my levels. Turns out that is actually harder than you might expect. But after a lot of random enchanted books and messing around with the grindstone, I ended up at almost exactly level 17. Now, full levels are easy to lose, so I decided to just go for it and hope that nobody would see that tiny sliver of green in my XP bar. And then I did the craziest thing so far in my hardcore series. I broke my 5,005-day streak of not sleeping in the world. Just so I would start my skyblock series at the right time of day, and I wouldn't have phantoms for the first 3 nights. With everything ready, I yeeted all my things off the side of my island into a hopper far below me on the ground. And then the challenge began. Before we get into it, if a skyblock start to the video isn't for you, I added chapters so you can skip past it. And if you're here for the journey rather than the destination, I think you're awesome, and let's get skyblocking. From this point, it was classic skyblock, but the goals were a little different. Sure, it starts out with a cobblestone generator as it always does. And yes, I had to send up prayers to RNGesus to grant me that first sapling. But I was on a mission to make a build that wouldn't ruin the landscape. Wait, is it skyscape if it's floating high up in the air? I can't ruin it. The end result has to be awesome, because this build will be in my world forever. Since dirt is extremely valuable here, I would carefully float it down in a water stream to place a slab under my dirt, just so I could collect up all the blocks and use it for farms later. So far, things were going well. I was farming cobble, I had my dirt sorted, and I was building a tree farm. By day 3, I almost burned down my brand new roof. But once the fire was under control, I had a proper primitive wood farm above my cobblestone generator. That's kind of a big deal, because I can spend the nights here getting cobble, the trees will grow, and no phantoms will spawn. I was making serious progress. So naturally, I started thinking about crossing to the desert island to get some extra resources on day 4. With the sun nearly setting, and my insomnia counter back to phantom levels, I decided against doing it that night and mined the night away. Using some of the charcoal from logs burned up in a furnace, I made a start to smelting some cobblestone for non-cobblestone smooth stone decorations. Fancy, I know. Placing some stone brick pillars to actually support the roof was a good start, but it also gave me the biggest scare of the entire skyblock experience. Oh my god. Not even kidding, my heart rate was through the roof. My palms were sweaty, knees weak, arms were heavy. Let's say I didn't quite eject last night's spaghetti on my sweater, but I really wasn't feeling like bridging across anymore. So instead, I composted some saplings to get a single bone meal, which I then used to grow seagrass. This trick gives you at least one additional water source, which equals infinite water. And that is a big step towards farming, which means we can finally get some food going. The next day, I had collected myself again, so I made a bridge across, ignored the 3 smooth sandstone in my inventory after taking down the island, and I set up a cactus farm for bone meal, which I would literally never end up using. But hey, early day skyblock, any progress counts. Over the next few days, I worked on building a little farm and extended my wood farm around the outside of my cobblestone farm area. And then, before I realized it, I got to the point where it was time to build my skyblock starter house. With a simple starter house above the cobblestone generator, I had turned my skyblock island into a new home. But I was worried. I was still running around without armor, meaning any fight with a mob that randomly spawned somewhere could turn into trouble real quick. So, for safety reasons, it was time to start working towards the biggest step of skyblock progression. I needed to cure zombie villagers so I could make an iron farm and finally put some clothes on. Since I had nothing much to work with beyond cobblestone and oak planks, the best option was a pretty amazing mob farm designed by Ilmango specifically for skyblock. It abuses a mob pathfinding mechanic called wandering. By using nothing but stairs and slabs to build the farm, mobs then try to wander to a nearby full block they find, which in this farm is on the other side of the killing chamber, making the mobs fall right down there where I can kill them. After 3 days of building the farm, it was ready to go, and I pretty much immediately got what I was looking for. While access to lots of bones and the occasional armor drops really does help, I was really looking for 2 zombie villagers and a witch. By the time day 23 came around, I had all 3 of those. So I set up my nether portal in the exact place where I built it before I started skyblocking, but I still was pretty nervous when going through it. I really did not want to go into the nether with some crappy armor and end up in the wrong place with my hardcore world on the line. The portal worked just fine. And 3 stressed out days of bridging over the void later, I had a gold farm. And the raids were absolutely terrible. One side of the farm ended up in a crimson forest biome, meaning that only one half of it actually spawned zombie pigmen. But I was stressed out and didn't want to risk my world again with more bridging. So rather than building another platform, I decided to spend a little over an hour at the farm to get 16 gold ingots. Pretty funny when you know that this farm, only 5 blocks out of render distance from my nether skyblock, produces stacks of gold blocks in the same time frame. But hey, sometimes you just have to appreciate the small things. With my golden apples ready, I had a pretty sketch run-in with a witch that left me on 1.5 hearts without a totem, although I was never in real danger of dying there. Witches are pretty slow, so there was no way she was gonna catch up with me. Unfortunately, when I tried relocating the witch, she went into the nether portal and refused to use the portal to travel back the other way. So I made a better setup to cure the villagers safely and grinded the mob farm until I found a second witch. And on day 29, I gave the zombie villagers a golden apple each. With these guys cured up, I made the biggest leap in skyblock progression. Villagers are the key to everything, but I still had to get a lot more of them, meaning the next step forward was a villager breeder, and this is where I made a bit of a miscalculation. My breeder setup needed 4 beds made out of 12 wool blocks in total, or 48 string, and that is a lot of string if you don't have a spider farm. But even after building it, it took me 5 days to get all the string required. At least I grinded a lot of materials during that time. Another 8 days later, I finally lured a zombie into the iron farm setup, and on day 46, I kitted myself out with a full set of iron armor. Sure, it isn't much for a day 5051 in hardcore, but it made me feel a lot more secure. This is where stuff gets really good. In skyblock, this right here is the tipping point. Once you have access to villagers, capitalism is the name of the game. So I bridged out from my starter house and made a platform that had the same Y level and same footprint as my cobalt generator platform, and I started construction on the base of a villager trading tower. The bones from the mob farm helped me get a load of carrots to level up a farmer villager, which finally got me access to a decent food source in golden carrots. But then I started looking for the villagers I really needed. Armorers can get me diamond armor in time, but they also have a trade where they buy iron, which is a really reliable way of getting emeralds at this stage. When I walked back to get another villager into the Tower of Commerce, I found a wandering trader. These guys are really important in skyblock because they can give you random new breakthroughs. This particular trader gave me 15 podzol, which means extra dirt blocks for the crop farm, as well as some dark oak saplings. A whole new wood type is pretty big for decoration. By day 54, the economy was flourishing, so I started leveling up a toolsmith to get diamond tools, followed by the quest for a mending librarian to preserve my new diamond gear. Before I found mending though, I ran into silk touch, so I decided to take that to improve the melon farming rates. That turned out to be an insanely good choice, because the same librarian also rolled a sharpness 5 and efficiency 4 trade, making him literally the best librarian I have ever had in any world. I had full diamond gear, the emeralds were rolling in, and that allowed me to shift gears and start working towards my return to the hardcore world down below. I had one big goal left to accomplish: turning this messy early days skyblock world into a build that wouldn't ruin my day every time I flew past it. And mason villagers are the key to getting that done. These guys give me access to a wide selection of building blocks, and using the options they opened up, I started building up their Tower of Commerce, which would serve as a template for the rest of the build. A couple green and lime wool blocks from a shepherd to finish it off, and by day 65, everything still looked incredibly skyblocky and messy, but I had the beginning of a proper project. But we were far from this being a cool build. And to get there, I needed two things. The industrial mob and iron farms had to be removed or replaced with something that fits in the build, and I needed to scale up my economy. The first step to getting both of those things was building a second layer of my skyblock world below the one I already had, so that I could set up iron farms directly under the platforms. And that's when I really, truly, absolutely fumbled the bag. I lost the one thing that I can't replace in skyblock without access to the original thing: my lava source. Luckily, I had a lot of progress to fall back on by this point. I could use campfires to kill the iron golems, as well as mason villagers that I could use to get blocks now that I didn't have a stone generator anymore. But it meant that I had to heavily rely on a block nobody ever uses a lot of: chiseled stone bricks. Using those, I made a bridge connecting the starter house platform and the villager tower platform. I moved my crop farms down there as well as the villager breeder, so that by day 88, for the first time in the challenge, my project started to look somewhat clean. But with my lava bucket lost forever, I found myself facing pretty severe obstacles. I still had a lot of building to do, but my emerald supply wasn't really up to the challenge of buying every single building block that I needed. Luckily, someone in my comment section, Speedy Minecraft, had me covered. I had a debilitating spending problem, and the only way to fix it was selling an ungodly amount of string to fishermen. That shady business setup allowed me to finance 2 more bridge sections to double the length of my skyblock area. I was hoping that the increased surface area would raise the odds of a wandering trader spawning in, because a lot of blocks are still locked away in 1DT's Vault of Valuables. Even though I had a really big setback with the obsidian mishap, I was now comfortably in the building stage of my skyblock challenge. So I did what I do best. I built, and then I built some more. By day 113, I was so loaded that I replaced the chiseled stone in my money printing machine with emerald blocks, and just 10 days later, I was at the point that I could remove the mob farm because I would not be needing it anymore. I had a lot of resources stocked up, and my skyblock challenge was nearing completion. The masons gave me access to a lot of surprising blocks, and I used them as well as I could. I built more towers on the bridge, added colorful detailing blocks to bring the build to life, and I covered up the exposed lower areas that housed the 2 iron farms, so that by day 145, or actually day 5150, I was ready to float back down to the ground and return to life with an elytra in an endless world. Me floating down left my comment section confused, but by the end of the challenge, longtime viewer Straight Up Ninja was the only one who had called me out on my shenanigans. And he was absolutely right. I had been in my hardcore world all along. After making it back down to the ground, I flew back up to leave all my skyblock gear in a chest in the middle trading area. The storage was organized, the villagers were doing well, and I left everything as it was before I floated down so that I can continue the in-world skyblock series when I feel like it sometime in the future. I uploaded the skyblock reveal video to mark the end of the series on April 19th of 2024. Exactly 9 days after my world turned 2 years old. That meant I had to honor an old tradition that started way back in my first hardcore world with this build. And every birthday of my world, I make a trip around all the projects I worked on and collect the shulker boxes that were left behind to turn them into a piece of shulker art. The rules are pretty simple. Every box that is not in a proper storage chest counts. I have to use all of the boxes I find, and I can't change any of their colors. This is a public service warning. The following scene contains images that can be shocking to viewers who like a clean and organized personal and/or workspace. Looney can't be held responsible for negative mental health effects from viewing these images. Viewer discretion is advised. I just emptied all the shulkers I found into this chest monster from hell. There were 298 shulker boxes left behind in 17 different colors. Let's go to the Hall of Years and turn year 2 of this Minecraft world into an art piece. Last year, I managed this room and I left a lot of endrads, plus that flower made from all the shulker boxes I found last year. For this second year, I wanted to make an art piece above the flower and clean up the room a bit more. Year by year, this will turn into something awesome. The first step was making a construction platform and sorting all the different colors of boxes. The main challenge is using all the colors without making a terrible mess. So sorting is really essential. And just when I finished organizing everything, I had a pretty good idea. I recently made a really big wool farm. If I use colored wool blocks to figure out the design, I don't have to worry about dropping any shulkers that aren't in the right place and accidentally despawning them. There is one box we can't replicate with wool though. So let me see if I can find some purple in the chest monsters on the nether roof. After browsing through a couple dozen chests, I found what I was looking for. But maybe I should have taken it from my normal storage, which actually isn't all that much better. If you're dying inside right now watching this, don't despair. Before the end of this video, I will have awesome automated storage. After over 10,000 days over the course of 2 worlds of me being too stubborn to make it. Meanwhile, I had made a good start on the art piece in the Hall of the Years. I decided to go for a mask against the cave wall, but I think the angle is wrong. Okay, that's gonna be much better because that means the mask is slightly leaning towards us. Now I just gotta build the second eye and then we gotta see if it looks right. I think this is gonna work. Now let's start with the shulker boxes that I have an absolute load of, 76 regular purple colored shulker boxes. I'm mostly gonna use these to shape the mask around the eye sockets. Okay, I made like a brow on top that goes out quite wide. It gives me insect vibes, like a horned beetle or something. But it's a good foundation. Now we gotta add some color. I'm gonna start with the 16 purple blocks that I have just to accentuate a little bit around the eyes. Then I have 8 cyan, which I can use around the outside here. I think symmetry is honestly key with this thing. So I can use those blue ones, the 3 that I have up there, and then maybe we'll fill that in with some light gray. Oh my god, this already looks so messy and I just got started. But in all honesty, I don't hate it. I think we gotta open up some space with my platform in the corner, and then we're gonna start working down and get the mask shape in there. These usually take some trial and error, but I'm just gonna go off feel here. I gotta make sure that I keep the angle where the mask leans forward a little bit. Okay, that's good, but it can be way steeper. Yeah, that's much better. Right, so I have to place green and lime blocks, and those are gonna work terribly with some of the other colors. So I kinda wanna put them outside of the mask. What if I put them like way on top and we make a jester hat-like shape? Then maybe put lanterns on those at the end. Okay, that works for the shape, but oh my god, am I glad that I decided to put the green outside of the mask. Those colors suck. Okay, next up we have pink, which is sort of terrible in its own way, but it works really well with the purples. Then we have brown and orange, which can go along the outsides right here. But now I need to figure out the mouth. I think we're gonna go black, and I'm gonna try this line. I tried to go for a smile, but this looks like a grimace more than anything. So version 2 is not much better. At this point, I didn't really have any thoughts on how to fix this, but I did get the yellow in place. Actually, taking out 2 red blocks in the middle helped a lot. Now I just need to fill in the bottom, the chin section. I think we're gonna go light gray here. With the chin filled in, we're down to the last blocks. I'm gonna put the light blue over here. So that was not as straightforward as I made it sound. I just spent like 30 minutes figuring it out, but I've extended the gesture hat to have another point in the middle. Okay, just my perspective, but for the absolute block vomit of colors that this is, it looks kind of dope. But I actually think it's time to start replacing the blocks with shulker boxes so they can get their final form. So I still have 6 magenta shulkers left, which I forgot, and then 1 normal shulker. I fear we can use the magenta ones as sort of eyebrows. This actually looks kinda neat. I still have to do a little bit of progress on the room around it, because right now, if we look around, there is end rolls floating everywhere, which means the entire room is super light, and that does not look great. So I'm gonna fly to the starter house, then I'm gonna pick up some stone and make stone slabs. And then if I activate the light level render in Mini HUD, I can see the light level, which in this case, I'm looking for any block that has a number on it. Whenever I see a number, I put a slab there so it becomes a spawn-proof block. And if everything is spawn-proof, I can just remove all the light sources. That way we can use the light to design where our attention goes in the room. Which means it is time to get rid of all these end rolls that are floating everywhere. Removing these things low-key felt like a minigame, and it was really fun. If you're curious how all of these end rolls ended up here in the first place, I just randomly placed them while I mined out the room. That looks so much better. There's still a couple floating I see. But if we make the room dark, we now have our full focus on the flower from last year and the mask that we just made. This room is going to be one of the weirdest places in my entire world, and I absolutely love it. Now we just got to build a pathway around here so we can actually see the room, because right now there's not a great view. I just need to get the wood for the walkway, but I gotta go to the main base first because my elytra is getting low, so I need to fix that. That is my elytra durability fixed. Now I need spruce slabs for the walkway. Let me mine out this corner here, and then I'm gradually gonna slope down along the sides of the cave wall. I'm literally going down like half a block every few blocks. And then right here at the end, we need a bit of a viewing platform. Then we just gotta add guardrails and lanterns. And for now, I think we're gonna leave the room like this. Last year, we dug the room out of nothing. We made the flower. This year, we fixed the lighting and added the walkway around. I can't wait to add the 3rd art installation in a year. That is such a weird room, and I so love it. But now I feel like some action. There is one loose end I have to wrap up before we can go crazy though. I want to turn the skyblock build into a bridge that is connected to the world below. There is one thing that would really help me speed up this process. A jump boost beacon would go a long way with a project like this. The thing is, beacons are pretty rare in my world. I think I've only fought like 7 withers so far. That's what you get for not building a wither skeleton farm. For now, I'll just take this beacon from the mining area hidden away in my base. Now the first thing I want to do is make 2 hills for the bridge pillars to stand on. This won't be the most sensible architectural feat in my world, but the bar isn't all that high. I mean, there are very few things that are less believable than a flying bridge. Now I just have to cover the stone hills with grass to blend them into the terrain. And for now, that concludes my skyblock adventures. I'll be honest, I'm excited to continue this project in the future. I have a pretty awesome idea in mind, but when we continue working on it, it will be in true skyblock fashion. You know what I really want to do now? It's time for an adventure. Minecraft Update 1.21 came out recently, and I've heard great things about the maze. It's time to find a trial chamber. Mojang decided to be pretty helpful here. With a little bit of luck, you can buy trial maps from cartographer villagers. So armed with a shulker full of emeralds and glass and my trusty Pathfinder's coffer, I traded for one of those at a village near my base. The map pointed to a trial chamber, not far from the village. And after a little bit of digging, I found myself inside a trial chamber for the very first time. And just like every other time when a new update came out, I approached the new content with more care than I needed to. It's not that I expect things to be incredibly hard. But every new experience reminds me of how much I have to lose at this point. That initial scared approach usually lasts for a couple minutes. And sure enough, in no time at all, I was running through the trial chamber like a full-fledged lunatic. The trial chamber was honestly awesome. I was pretty hyped when I got a new armor trim from the first ominous vault, and the second vault had an enchanted golden apple and a book with a new density enchantment, which seemed cool too. But that's not what I was here for. I was on a quest for 3 new music discs and a new mythical weapon. Maybe the next chamber would give me those. On my way to the next trial chamber, I ruined the lives of a whole village by spawning a raid, sealing a man in his house with emerald blocks, and then going for milk. But soon enough, we were headed for trial chamber number 2. Without even realizing that I needed to complete it again, I got the Monsters Hunted attachment. But chamber 2 had nothing else I cared about. This might be more difficult than I expected. The third trial chamber gave me the first of 3 music discs and a density 5 book. But by the end of that stream, after 3 straight hours of grinding trial chambers, there was no heavy core, no windburst book, and only 1 out of 3 music discs. And I had looted a lot of vaults. It appeared the trial chambers were going to make me work for it. So I did the only thing I could do, and I embraced the grind. The next stream, we saw lots of trial spawners and lots of vaults. In the second trial chamber of the day, I found a precipice music disc, and then another one straight after. And while it's pretty hard to complain when you get an enchanted golden apple, well, I complained loudly and often, because I got loads of apples. Raiding the trial chambers was fun as hell, but chamber 5, 6, 7, 8 didn't give me anything I really wanted. But after 7 hours of straight trial chamber grinding, I finally got what I was looking for. Immediately after finding the heavy core, I crafted my mace, but I wasn't quite ready to head home and enchant it. There was still 1 music disc missing to complete my collection. Luckily, RNGesus was shining his benevolent light upon me in trial chamber 9, because only 2 vaults later, I found the creator disc, which meant it was time to head home and take the mace for a test run. After updating my music disc collection, I headed over to Winter's Hollow under the Lonely Mountain when I made a surprising discovery. It appeared that a little while ago I used my last mending book. Unfortunately, I didn't have a mending villager anymore. There was this one guy who I traded my first mending books with way back when, but one day, when I came across my spawn, I just saw him standing in one by one. At that point in time, he had been there by himself for thousands of days. I had so many adventures in that time span. So I set him free to have his own adventures out in the world. Right now, it means that I need to get a new mending villager, and I think I know just the guy. Small disclaimer here. I used to have principles, one of which was not stealing villagers away from their homes. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, in this moment, I just straight up forgot that was a thing. But maybe this is something better than a simple mistake. Yeah, it's definitely better than a simple mistake. It's much better. Allow me to tell you the tale of Captain Strugglebum. The captain was a simple man. He lived in a small village on the banks of a river. Since Strugglebum was but a wee lad, he had always dreamt of sailing the open oceans in a boat. But his father was a farmer, as was his father before him, and Struggle was destined to be a farmer too. Things were simple. The village had to eat, and the ocean was but a faraway dream for the young villagers. Nothing more. When young Struggle was no longer a wee lad, but a young man, he refused to stop talking about boats though. And the other villagers mockingly started calling him the captain. They weren't fishing people, they were farmers, and Strugglebum was meant to be a farmer too. Then one day, life in the village was abruptly and roughly turned upside down. Calamity struck. A horn sounded in the distance, and seconds later it was pandemonium. There were pillagers everywhere, menacing grunts, Sounds of crossbows being drawn, the whistling of arrows splitting the air, and the heavy cracks of axes breaking down wooden doors. And one particular sound that stood out distinctly from all the rest. Struggle remembered it well. There was a strange, faint whistling of paper rockets in the air. But that's all he remembered. Our dear Strugglebum, he wasn't a brave villager. He never had been. So when chaos erupted, he was the first one to run into his house. He ran around in there like a headless chicken until the mayhem subsided. But eventually, quiet returned to the village, and Struggle calmed down. He was still alive. And somehow, in front of his door was a solid wall of snow. That was a little strange. But the captain didn't think about things much if the things in question weren't boats. When Struggle dug out, he realized he wasn't the only one who had survived the assault. His next-door neighbor Frank had as well. What happened next may seem peculiar, but the ways of villagers are near impossible for us humans to understand. Despite the massacre, life in the village went on exactly as it had before the attack. Struggle and Frank lived out their days, farming like nothing ever happened. And for a while, that was all they did. Until that day when lightning split the sky and the captain's neighbor Frank took a trident to the face. That night, Struggle did what he had always done when something happened. He ran inside and panicked. Until he calmed down once more and did what his people had always done. He went right back to farming, day in and day out. And that brings us to the present day, when out of nowhere, a man showed up, broke his bed, and presented him with a boat. Captain Strugglebum was about to go on a boat ride that far exceeded even his wildest dreams. But when I arrived that day, I had no idea about any of that. To me, he was simply the last villager near my base who could be a librarian. So I decided that I was going to test another new mechanic that was added with the 1.21 update. You can now lead boats, which makes moving villagers a lot easier. My base is still pretty far away from the village though, but if I can pull the boat with the villager high enough up in the air, that shouldn't be a problem. Flying directly up will break the lead because the boat can't accelerate that fast. But if you spiral while flying up, it should be possible to gain some height while not getting too far away from the boat too fast. In the first few tries, I got proof of concept. But to make it all the way to the base, I need at least 3 consecutive rockets to get up far enough. That meant I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And after a while, things got messy because a few drowns showed up to ruin my day. Once the threat was neutralized, my villager had been turned into a zombie and was walking around underwater. I named the villager to prevent him from despawning, splashed him with a potion of fire resistance just in case it stopped raining, and then continued my attempts to get enough air. And then, on the 4th try, I finally pulled it off. Stream Chat had barely any faith in me, but me and Captain Strugglebum soared his boat across the sky so he could live out the rest of his days in a majestic fortress hidden in Winter's Hollows. Strugglebum may not have been the first villager in a boat, but he sure as hell was the first one to fly that boat all the way to a castle through a magical door and into a subterranean fortress. And that's how you know he was born to be different. As for me, I had a mending villager once more, meaning I could finally get proper enchantments on my mace, so we're all winners here. That stream, I didn't get the hang of using the mace just yet. It turns out, having blast protection on an armor piece prevents you from properly getting launched with wind charges. But 1,000 days in game is a long time, so I'll surely figure it out later in the video. For now, I want to try my hand at something else. Let's head over to my world spawn. The time has finally come to execute a crazy plan that I've had for thousands of days. According to my calculations, a portal that combines the power of 100 separate nether portals should be powerful enough to leave the confines of this world and explore other places out there. See what life has to offer, you know? I started with building a framework for the portal, until I ran out of purple wool, so I made a quick trip to the sheep farm to get some more, and got right back to building. Once the frame was done, it was quite literally taller than a mountain. But with a portal that tall, I needed to clear some space on the ground. That's a lot easier if you put down a beacon first. After preparing the area, there was just one small issue left to deal with before I could actually start building, I unfortunately had to evict whoever lived here. And with that, step 1 of my escape plan was completed. And it was time to move on to step 2, setting up the 100 portals required to power my ingenious device. Using the 6 stacks of obsidian that I still had laying around in my storage, I built as many portals as I could inside the wool frame. But that only got me 20% of the way there. So I made my way back to the base, onto the nether roof, into the end, and I mined down 2 more of the obsidian pillars to get all the blocks I needed and a little bit to spare. Just a little while later, I completed a ring of portals on either side of the wool frame. These will literally power my escape portal in the end, you'll see. But before I could do that, there was an entire portal frame to be built up. So I made a trip to my base to collect the building materials. Until I ran into a problem. There was no crying obsidian left in my piglin bartering farm. And getting more was going to be a pain. Because what you see above me right now is not a proper way to sort items at all. And then there's the issue of the gold farm. That one actually works great, but the storage for it is a mess too. Luckily, the crafter has just been added to the game, which means that we can now condense gold nuggets into gold blocks automatically. So I got busy redstoning. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even pretty. Actually, if one of my redstone friends saw this, they would probably slap me out of pure disappointment. But hey, I cooked it up myself and it worked, so I was pretty stoked. Next up, I had to fix the piglin bartering sorter. And since you can't use water streams in the nether, the best ways to get the items to their filters is over an ice path with hoppers next to it. Using something that is narrower than a full block, like an ender chest, the items can be aligned to be both over the ice and the hoppers at the same time. So once more, I started cooking. And after a bit of trial and error, I came up with what I like to call the horrifying piglin bartering item sortinator iteration v3. Truth be told, design is even worse than the name. But once more, it does what it needs to do. But I think I finally learned my lesson here. No more complicated redstone directly in survival. There's absolutely no shame in figuring it out in creative. With my storage solutions fixed and the crying obsidian I needed traded with the piglins, it was time to replace the temporary wool frame and get to work. And that concluded step 2 of my plan. All the obsidian was in place, so it was time to build the portal frame and add another cool build to the world. Except it's never that easy, is it? Yeah, it was time for a resource run, so I made my way over to the base, grabbed stone and andesite from the storage. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any moss blocks, but there's always the option to run around in my bone meal farm for a minute. I made a quick trip to the desert and yeeted all that sand in the super smelter to get the glass I needed. Then mangrove wood, soil on the way back through the nether, and then I got busy mining for cobblestone, which was a huge waste of time because this is how much cobble I actually had in my storage. And that, my friends, is the exact moment I decided that the time had come to make proper automated storage. Well, soon, because I still had a portal to finish. After crossing black wool, skull and purple glazed terracotta from my shopping list, I finally had everything I needed, so it was time to start construction. So while I play the time lapse in the bottom right, let's talk about the design for this portal for a little bit. I finally went over to the dark side and tried my hand at Lightmatica and Axiom for the first time. The verdict? Well, I feel really dumb for not trying it earlier. There's this shelf of ideas that I want to build for you, but realistically some of them were never going to get done if I take multiple months per project to figure everything out in survival. So we'll do the freestyling on streams because that's just super fun to share with you guys. But if I want to go super crazy for a video, I'm going to embrace the tools that are out there. It's time to level up. If you want to hear about the actual design choices for the portal itself, you can check them out in the original video. But my first time playing around with Axiom and Lightmatica led to this. Now I just have to activate it. You didn't really expect that to work, did you? I told you we need the power of 100 portals all at once to activate this thing. we're about to build a ginormous redstone circuit. And that means we have to do another resource run. Getting the resources for that might have been challenging if it wasn't for the fact that witch farms have been majorly buffed in the most recent Minecraft update to compensate for raid farms getting nerfed. If you ask me, witch farms were always a lot cooler because they're location based. So in my eyes, that's a good fix. Now I need an absolute load of flint. Luckily, you can easily get that with a fortune shovel. Once both the flint and steel and the water buckets were taken care of, I made my way back to world spawn, where I spent 3 hours following my Litematica schematic to put the redstone circuit in place. I honestly think this might have taken me like 2 days without it. There is no way I would have made that without a mistake or two. Last but not least, I filled all the dispensers and then I pressed the button to activate the portal. It depowered. I don't think I can sustain a gateway yet. I have to find a way to keep all the support portals lit. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bummed out. For now it appears my escape plan has failed. When I finished construction of the mega portal that was unfortunately unable to take me out of this world, I had reached day 5342. I had already started research for a storage project that came after, but there was some time to kill on stream while I finalized the design for the next big project. So I switched gears and made my way back to the main base. I'll give you a quick recap, because we haven't been here since day 5000. This is my forever mega base, the craziest single survival project I will ever make. I've been working on it for over 2 years now, and it's still not close to being completed. We have the Castle of Winter's Hold with its top tower that reaches the build limit, which is filled with interiors and secret passages that extend well down into the lonely mountain underneath. We have Winter's Hollow, a giant cave that goes all the way down to bedrock. The 300 block wide cave is filled with decorations and hidden farms that provide me with the resources to build my world. There's a pathway all the way from the top tower down to the bottom of the cave, which takes over 10 minutes to walk in full, and all of it is decorated. I could go on about the details for a while, and then we haven't even built the elytra cores tucked into the cave walls and the other crazy things which are still on the to-do list to finish the base off. But currently, I'm in the process of decorating different color sections in Winter's Hollow. So far, I've worked on the purple, pink, and green areas, and I've made a small start to yellow as well. But there's still a lot of work to be done on some of the other parts, and I decided to start with the blue area next. So far, I've made the entire base without using any Litematica or creative planning, and I'll definitely finish this project the way I started it. But that means that the progress is very off the cuff. For most of the builds here, I figured out what we were going to do while talking to my stream chat, and the blue area is a perfect example of how that process flows. We started out the day with getting some snow blocks from the farm over at Mount Cheddarmore to use as temporary blocks. And then I spent the better part of a stream figuring out the perfect shape for a giant diagonal archway set into the cave wall. The idea was that this would give access to a cave chamber behind it, which emanated the cold air, which froze the ice pillar next to it over time from water trickling down from the ceiling. This thing hides a ton of farms, and initially the idea was to have a few of these pillars around the cave. That was before all the best ideas came along though, and now it honestly looks a little out of place. But after adding the shape for the arch that gave access to what soon would be referred to as the blue cave, and then using smooth basalt to blend it into the cave wall around it, I could see the blue area coming together. In between streams, I dug out the cave area behind the arch and connected it to a cave that had naturally generated there. I covered the floor in packed ice, and to save some time on decorating, I decided to grab a couple different gray blocks to blend from the smooth basalt to the stone in the cave behind it. That way, I could keep the natural stone. I decided to make the lighting in the cave pretty dim, except for this ancient relic in the back of the room. But then, something came up, which made me press pause on the blue area decoration for a little bit. I learned how cool the maze actually is, which set us up for another trial chamber run. my maze could still be improved because it had Unbreaking 3, Mending, Density 5, and Windburst 2 on it. And while that is pretty close to perfect, there is a massive difference between Windburst 2 and Windburst 3. Since Windburst only drops as a level 1 book from an Ominous Vault 5.5% of the time, it took many hours of clearing trial chambers to get another 2 books. But once I got it, the full potential of the maze was unlocked. Now, I just had to get some practice in behind the scenes. The next 2 streams, I worked on emptying out my completely filled up Guardian farm and turning the resources into blocks with autocrafters, while I grinded out my next video project in between those streams. The time had come to upgrade my storage, and I decided to combine it with a wild building challenge. With everything you build in Minecraft, your world changes. But as time goes by, it's easy to forget how far you have really come. That's what makes maps so cool. They let you record the history of a changing world. Take my base for example. The area used to look like this, and now everything is snowy and awesome. But that's when we look at a big part of the world. The individual maps suck, and that got me thinking. People have made amazing map art creations. The problem is, they look horrific up close, but maybe that doesn't have to be the case. Okay, that's it. I'm going to be the first person to make a base that looks great on a map as well as in 3D. But first, I have a problem to look into. I have 2.5 years worth of chest monsters, but my base has no room for an automated sorter. All the farms plus a full storage would definitely set my PC on fire. So I need a good location for a storage system which I can then hide under a map art base. I think I have a plan, and it all starts with step 1, finding the perfect location. The stronghold is the ideal location because it's the most versatile place in the entire game for quick travel. I've already marked out the area that we'll be building in with some wool pillars. Let's start by setting up a beacon and clearing the trees. So I already ran into a problem. That one beacon doesn't cover the entire area. Let's get some more to make my life a little easier. There's a perfect fortress to farm wither skeletons over in this direction. And today I'm finally building a wither skeleton farm here. The Soulsand Valley is ideal for this farm, because the biome is coded to be desolate. Only a few skeletons and ghast spawn here, so there's plenty of room in the mob cap for fortress mobs to spawn without any spawn proofing. And this easy to build farm designed by ENXO4 makes perfect use of those circumstances. If you're curious why I'm only making a wither skeleton farm after 5,000 plus days, I've played all that time without using the F3 screen. So I haven't had access to coordinates, which is really fun and adventurous, but it gets really complicated when you want to link up nether portals. So I decided that I'll start using coordinates going forward, but only to link up nether portals, so I can take this world to the next level. Also, building this farm without coordinates could kill me if I mess up my portals, so there's that. Let's see if I got it right. A gold apple may seem like a bit much there, but I didn't know how many wither skeletons were there, and in hardcore you just don't risk it. Let's build up and set up the correct portals. Something is wrong because the farm isn't working yet. I'm going to have to test the portals in the nether to see where the skellies actually go. Wither skeletons are scary. Surely there's not like dozens of them on the other side, but better safe than sorry. Okay, well, those do end up in the right place at least. It turned out that the platform for the killing chamber was a couple blocks too high. So after fixing that, I now have a working wither skeleton farm. Let's grab some regen potions from the base and kill a couple withers to get my beacons. Since Minecraft Update 121 came out, there's only one right way to fight the Wither, and I have just the place to do it. I just need to put on some diamond armor first. And now we make our way to my ocean monument. This platform is waterlogged. I use it to collect mob heads from charged creepers during thunderstorms, but it can also handle wither explosions. Let me show you how this is done. That was actually a lot of fun, but now that it's done, I can set up the beacons and start digging the area. That's about half of the area done, although I think the other side of the river is a little bit more work. Okay, that's progress. I'm done digging, but I have to enchant some new tools because I broke 4 netherite pickaxes while clearing the area. Let's just say it was a very zen mining session. But now I have to hop by my base to get new tools. I found all the books I need to make these maxed out picks, but it's probably going to burn all my levels. Yeah, I'm level 13 now. That sucks. You know what? Let's do it one more time for old time's sake. Maybe this is the very last time that I'll be level 69 in this world. With that out of the way, it's time for step 2 of my plan. I have to design and build my dream storage. Up to this point, I've worked out of 2 storage rooms. This one in my starter house for the first 1,000 days or so, and this one in my main base since then. I don't think anyone can argue that it didn't work with all the things I've built so far, but the chest monsters are growing ever larger. So the time has come to take my storage to the next level, and if you want to figure out how to do that, there's only one place to go. The Storage Tech Discord. Let me take you on a quick tour through an epic corner of the Minecraft community. If you would ask me at any given moment what the best thing about Minecraft is, I would probably say something like this. The game is so simple that everyone immediately gets it, but at the same time, it has this unbelievable depth to it. My adventure in the Storage Tech archives embodies that statement so perfectly. We all start out here, crafting our first chest, and that works pretty well. But somehow people have ended up in some crazy places. These people are, in my eyes, legitimate scientists, engineers, pioneers, and they deserve their props. So I want to give a heartfelt shout out to all the redstoners, farm designers, storage wizards, and basically every technical player out there for making the game what it is today. Truly, you guys rock. Reading up on the Storage Tech basics was more complicated than most university courses I've followed. So going over all of it in this video isn't realistic. But after 3 days of studying in the Storage Tech archives, I felt ready to cook up my first storage system, and I'll show you how everything works as I build it. Before we get to that, there is one important question to answer though. What am I going to sort? There are over 1,400 items we have access to in survival. But making a system for every item is in my eyes a waste of time and resources. Lots of items are too specific to sort, too easy to make on the spot, or never needed in large quantities. So I narrowed down my selection to 52 blocks I want to store in bulk with shulker box loaders, and 307 items where 2 double chests should be enough. After a couple design iterations, this is what the bones of my storage look like. Let's get back to my hardcore world and build this thing. I'll tell you more about the details later. First things first, I need to head to my main base to get the resources. Luckily, the base has a lot of farms, so we should be fine. There's 2 witch farms that will give us all the redstone materials. If I dump 7 sugar boxes of stone into here, the minecarts will distribute it over 92 furnaces and we'll have all the smooth stone we need. Now I need 3,000 chests and 2,000 hoppers. That one will be a bit problematic because I don't have a wood farm yet, but we'll build some later at the storage location. Then there's a lot of redstone components that need to be crafted. Okay, let's see. I've been going around my base for a while now, and this is what I've collected. That's mostly everything I need. There's just one block that is a bit harder to get. I need 492 target blocks. And the hay bales used to craft those are a bit of a pain. Maybe I still have them in my starter house. That's 63. It helps, but I'm nowhere close to getting all of them. I just went through all the chests in my base and I didn't find the hay bales, but I really want to start building, so I'm going to do something drastic and take out a loan with the Looneyville Bank. If that was hard to watch, then you might want to close your eyes for what's going to happen next. Yeah, that looks awful. I promise I'll place it back later. For now, I have everything we need, so it's time to get started. I'll take all of these sugar boxes and head over to the build site for the storage. It's probably a good idea to make one more run to the base to get some torches, scaffolding, and a sugar box filled with night vision potions. Okay, that's all the potions I need. Let me refill the bottles so the auto brewer keeps working. I'm taking this box of scaffolding, and then we're ready to head back. Let's light up the area. And now, I'm finally ready to start building. I think this is high enough. I'm keeping plenty of space under the storage room floor for future expansions. First order of business is getting the floor plan in place. From this center point, I will have 2 hallways on each side, with 50 item slots per hallway in total. So that's the floor plan. I left some holes for item transport tubes and slime block launchers. Now we need to put all those target blocks around the outside. These are used to lock the hoppers of this part of the storage hall. Hopper locking is one of the most important principles in storage tech. Let me explain how it works. Hoppers have 2 states, unlocked, which is their normal state, in which they interact with items, and locked, which is their powered state. In this state, they don't interact with items. The reason this is so important is that an unlocked hopper needs to check for items to interact with. The game calculates that check in the background, and you don't really notice. But these calculations become problematic when you have a lot of hoppers checking for items at the same time all the time. So a perfect storage system would lock every hopper all the time it doesn't need to be active. But a perfect storage system doesn't exist. So storage tech designers try to get as close to perfect as they can, which is really darn close, with hopper locking rates close to 100% in complete storage systems. And then there's me with my embarrassing chest monsters. I think you can see why I'm taking this so seriously. Meanwhile, I've placed out all the chests for this lower part of the storage. To speed things up a bit, I'm using a mod called Litematica that shows where all the blocks from my design should go. And right here, my OBS recording mysteriously froze for the next few hours. So for this next part, you're getting a flashback montage. But I should really address something here. Until recently, I have hated on Litematica quite a bit, but I actually never tried it out. So the first time I actually tried it for my previous video, I felt like such an idiot for my previous take on using the mod. Turns out, it's a great tool that will help you get cooler video ideas to you guys quicker, like this map art base that we're about to build. If you're a bit of a Minecraft purist like I used to be, all I ask is give me the benefit of the doubt until the end of the video, and I think you'll see how the Looney Litematica era is going to be pretty awesome. I'm extremely stoked on the possibilities, and generally speaking, excited content equals good content. As you can see, the frozen OBS recording session was a productive one in terms of building because all of the item filters are in place, including the 64 sugar box loading units. The lower part of the storage is made out of double speed item filters. These are designed by Ilmango, and they differ from regular item filters because of a downward facing hopper, which pushes items down while the lower hopper pulls them out. This only works if the filters are loaded correctly, but we'll get to that later when I load them. The upper part of the storage consists of a sugar box loader system made out of alternating slime and honey slices of this design, which is made by SirGD and Kartoffel. Now I have to add hopper locking systems for all these components and water streams to move the items around the storage. And with the main components done, it's time to load the item filters. For double speed filters, you need this layout where the lower hopper has a full stack of the sortable item and a different set of filter items than the top hopper. Okay, now in practice, I need a lot of snow layers. These are going to be named items that go in the system, which are never going to end up in the system otherwise, because if they do, everything breaks. Now I need iron for the anvils, and then I'm going to make my way back to the storage and name all the items, which means I now have 0 levels left. That's just sad. Now I have to fill up all the item filters with the filter items, and then we have to go on a mission. Because the advantage of this system is it is twice as fast, but the disadvantage is it needs a stack and 1 of every item I want to sort. All in all, it's not that bad. I just have to go on a little trip to find things like all saplings, hay bales. Let me actually grab a couple extra of these because I have an outstanding debt. I completely destroyed the durability of my hoe, so I have to drop by the base, but I couldn't help activating the portal. Okay, let me heal this thing up. Yeah, I'm stuck in a composter. I don't know how I got here. But I do have all the saplings I needed now. Ah, yes, I finally found an azalea tree for rooted dirt. Getting all the required items and loading the filters was a couple hours of work, but the storage is ready to go now. That means it's time to set up the shulker box unloader. I'm using this slice designed by Command Leo. This will empty the shulker boxes and put them in a water stream, where the items have to float up in the water to get over this slab. This is a simple way to batch items, which means that multiple instances of the same item get collected into mini stacks of a couple items. If you don't do this, items can shoot past their filter because of a mechanic called hopper cooldown. Right after picking up an item, hopper is disabled for 8 game ticks, or 4/10 of a second. Batching items avoids this problem because the hopper picks up an entire mini stack and then there's plenty of time before the next one arrives. Now all that is left is the water streams where items get aligned by either sea pickles on the inside corners or honey blocks on the outside corners. And with that out of the way, I now have automated storage. This lever right here turns the system on or off, in which state most of the hoppers in the system are locked. And all the items that don't get sorted end up in overflow chests, which we'll address later. Let's start killing chest monsters and dumping the items into storage so it starts filtering through it while I switch my attention and build that map art base that I promised you. Oh my god, that looks so sick! Oh, I'm happy this thing is running. We'll check back on the progress later, because this is what the storage looks like on the map right now, and I want to change that. So it's time for step 3 of my plan, laying out the map art. You've seen the design on the thumbnail, so it's no mystery what the map is going to look like. But to get there, we're going to need some interesting blocks. One of those is oxidized copper, which needs a bit of time. So I'm going to grab my copper supply from the smelter room. Ooh, there's a lot of cut copper here, but if I let normal blocks of copper oxidize instead, I can cut those up into 4 cut copper per block using a stone cutter. There was a lot of cut and copper in that sentence. Okay, that's the start, but I need some more blocks. So let's turn on the shaders and fly over the ocean to find copper veins. Almost unfair how easy it is to find these. That trip was very productive. Almost 2 shulker boxes of raw copper. Let's drop by the base and smelt it up. That's a lot of copper blocks. Multiply that by 4 after putting it through a stone cutter and it should definitely be enough. Next up, I need gold blocks, which means small AFK session at the gold farm. That's the perfect time to get in a quick workout. One workout later, this is probably way too much gold, but I'll take it. After getting loads of glow lichen from one of the weirder farms in my world and collecting warp malleum from the nether, I'm now ready to start working on the map. That's a perfect way to enter, I don't want to hear it. So that is the first platform. Let's fly back inside and update the map to see how it looks. Okay, that's the start. And it does not look like much, so I should probably do a whole lot more of that. Well, that is progress, but there is a slight issue. I should put some torches up here. I have actually made a lot of progress, but I'm all out of warped planks and I don't feel like waiting, so it's time for a quick trip to the nether and some manual labor. Let's see a quick progress update. This is headed in the right direction. Let me just quickly finish all the green parts. And now that is done, we're getting to the brown sections. Crazy thing is that we can actually use tough blocks to get the map color. I just need a good place to mine a lot of it, and I think I have a pretty great idea. I'm going to dig down right about here. Not only are we right above a stronghold, but there is also an ancient city right underneath. Alright, let me put a beacon down here and see how much we can find. Unironically, this might be the best location in the game to look for tough. Well, if you happen to have an ancient city where you removed all the shriekers like I did here a long time ago. I got everything I need. Let's head back up. My tools are messed up from that mining session, so I need to mend them, and I'm going to do that at the Wither Skeleton Farm. This isn't the best place for XP, but it's certainly not the worst place either. The reason I'm going here is I need a lot of bone meal later on, and this is probably the quickest way to collect the bones for it. I couldn't resist standing here until I got back to 69 again. Now, this might really be the last time. That got me almost 2 double chests of bones. Now, it's time to build the tough platforms. Okay, all the lower platforms are done now. It's time to take the disguise. I just realized I need to check on the copper down below because we have more blocks to oxidize. Yo, this is looking great. I'm not entirely sure if this works, but I'm just going to put the rest of the copper on top of these ones and check back later. Alright, that is all the platforms done. Looks kinda crazy to be honest. I didn't place that many blocks, but the build looks so much bigger now. It doesn't quite look like an Eye of Ender yet on the map though, and that's because I still have to place the glow light. Okay, hear me out. I just had a crazy realization. All those colored platforms behind me, don't they give you a little bit of a playground vibe? Well, turns out that's exactly what it is. Check this out. Oh, that was actually sick! I love the maze so much! With that part finished, I can now move on to step 4 of my plan, turning this map art into an actually cool base. And that starts with building the foundation of a city. The foundation looks sturdy enough to build on now, but to make the city above look dynamic, I need height variations at the base. That works. Let me hop into your creative world and I'll show you why that was important. These are the designs I cooked up for the towers that will make up the city. All these towers are made out of 8 block high segments which are rotated and then stacked up in an AB pattern. The uneven foundations will make sure that not all the support beams of all the towers line up perfectly, which would just be super boring to look at. So let's start collecting the resources to build the towers. Yo, it turns out that stacking the copper once it's oxidized works great. Let's put another layer on top. While that oxidizes, I need to set up a tree farm here. Luckily, we can consult ENX04 for most farm-related problems. Let's give this thing a test run. To nobody's surprise, that farm worked like a charm, which brings us to the grindiest, most boring part of the project. So I'm going to skip right past 3 full days of IRL work here. Long story short, running the tree farm, killing wither skeletons, stripping logs. And then all of those, again, then again, and again. For a grand total of about 22,000 stripped logs. But that brings me to the problem of the mangrove trees, which are not compatible with this farm, so I dug a hole here to add in another farm, made by Coherent and Sikar. This farm isn't nearly as fast as the other tree farm, but it still does a pretty good job. I just need to strip the logs. My guy, you're in the way. I'm going to ask nicely, but just once. Please be so kind as to move over, sir. Well, I got all my strip logs ready to go now. Let's start constructing the towers. I'm starting with the towers at the center of the city, and those are mostly made out of mangrove components. So that is what one section looks like. The one on top of that is nearly identical but rotated 90 degrees, and from there it's just a matter of stacking them on top until we reach the roof platform. And that's one tower done. With light medica assistance, that took me about an hour or so to do. This is going to take a while. Including mangrove farming, stripping more logs, crafting components, it took me 7 hours just to make these 3 towers. Let's move on to the acacia towers. Ooh. Missing feature, lightning rods. I still have to craft these. Oops, I don't think I recorded any of that. I was lucky to still have a lot of copper in the smelter output, so I just crafted a ton of lightning rods. But according to the material list, I need 1100 of them. This is 640, so I have to get some more later. But for now, let's build. The acacia tower has an easier design to build, so these are moving a lot faster. Yo, this towering city in the background of the village looks pretty sick, to be honest. We got paratroopers dropping in? What the heck? I've made a lot of progress on the acacia towers, but I'm out of lightning rods. There seems to be a lot of copper in this area though. Let's see how far these surface veins get me. Okay, I got so much copper, this is actually crazy. Let me smelt it up. While that is smelting, I can't help myself. Time for some quick slime jump parkour. Even though I technically failed that, I'm counting it as a win. I'm so flipping tired from this entire day of grinding towers. I just have one acacia tower left, but I literally spent 15 hours building towers today. I'm so done. Where did this guy come from? There's no nether portal anywhere close. I swear I'm seeing things. Next day, Looney here. I made quick work of the last acacia towers, and it's time to move on to spruce. But I incorporated a lot of brewing stands in the design, so I have to go and get some blaze rods to craft those. Luckily, I have a double blaze spawner farm, so let me turn down the render distance as low as it goes to despawn all the other mobs, and then we just wait. Alright, here we go. That's about half a shulker box of brewing stands. Let's start building the towers. I found something absurd. Let me check Creative World to see if this is real. Okay, it actually is. What the heck? I designed a tower with an entire slice of it missing. So, not all the roof sections are the same size. And to adjust for that, I just remodeled some of the towers to fit. Didn't quite work out with this one. But the position in the city means we can only see a tiny bit of the problem? I'll see what I do about it later on. All the spruce towers are done now. Well, pretty much. The jungle ones are next, but unfortunately, the tree farm is not quite self-sustaining on jungle saplings, so I need to get some more of those real quick. To prepare for the next tower type, I had to craft up a bunch of lecterns, so I made a quick trip to my base to visit some farms and my old storage for all the materials. But besides that, the jungle design didn't really present any new challenges. Next up are the bamboo towers. Let me plant a small bamboo forest up here just in case I run out of blocks. I also still need to strip these. I'm letting the bamboo grow in on the towers because it makes for a cool design. Besides that, the last two tower types are more of what you've seen already, so I'm going to skip past this next part. This center part of the city looks pretty impressive, but let's check what it looks like on the map. We can see a bit of a mess where my shulkers are, but otherwise, this looks like an ender eye, alright? Let's start working on the bottom part of the city then. I need to drop by my base to collect some dripstone blocks. You might not notice, but there's a dripstone farm here under the floor. I've been stockpiling this stuff for a while now. Oh, that's plenty. I'm going to start with the front wall. Hang on, I need to get some terracotta to dye light gray. Now I can finish the front wall. There's going to be a gate right here, but let's build all the walls first. These get their texture from granite, polished granite, terracotta and light gray terracotta, to add some detail to the dripstone that we can see from far away. Light Medica makes quick work of this, but I still gotta watch out for creepers. Right, that's the lower part, but it doesn't look like much. Unfortunately, I can't really continue building until I collect the next resource. I need a little over 13,000 endstone, which means I'm about 13,000 endstone short. And there's only one good way to get that. All my replacement picks are now dead. Let me fix that. That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. About 2.5 hours of mining, and I got everything I needed. The end island doesn't even look that weird, just very clean, I guess. With all the endstone I just got, I'm going to build on top of those dripstone walls that I just made. And now I want a curved roof on this front wall. Oh, look at that. There's a creeper party going on. That looks cool, but I want to extend that going backwards all the way to the foundation of the towers. And that's where all that oxidized copper comes in. I'm going to the base real quick to get some honeycomb so I can wax it. Editing Looney here. Hear me out. This whole waxing fully oxidized copper is pretty dumb. I did it to prevent lightning strikes from changing the block color. You know what also solves that issue? A single lightning rod. 3 copper ingots. Yeah, I was so deep in the project here that I wasn't thinking anymore. So I set up a whole auto waxing setup before I built the roof. Looks a little interesting now, but it will get better. Just to get it out of the way, I also built the endstone walls, which I left as plain endstone because I want to draw focus to other parts of the build. Hey, that at least has the shape of a build now. That's the first time. Spyglass just zooms way too far. Time for the next step. The map looks like a pretty clean ender eye, but the build can still be a lot better. I'm thinking I should add giant trees. Still got mangrove and jungle logs from the farms I built earlier. There's still a lot of spruce somewhere in my base from where I used to do my manual tree cutting. Don't ask me why. And then I need dark oak, but for that I need one more farm. Luckily, this is the easiest tree farm to build. Literally. This is a sick design by Squilly, which I found from Rekrup's melon runs. It uses a wild mechanic where blocks that are being pushed by a piston turn into something called Block 36, but only for the single game tick in which they are being pushed. Block 36 has 0 blast resistance, so if you get the timing right, it will explode a whole tree with one TNT blast. This farm is semi-auto, as you have to actively operate it, but it will give you a double chest of dark oak logs in about 10 minutes. Also, you can build this farm super early game, because it needs 0 hard to get materials, which makes it one of my favorite farms ever. Shout out to Squilly for cooking this up. Let me build up the trunk of the first tree. Oh, that looks very cool, but clearly it doesn't work on the map. So I designed a canopy where every top block matches the platform underneath. Let me make a quick trip to get the resources and I'll build it up. I need prismarine from the Guardian farm output. There's packed ice in the main storage at the base. the old storage at the main base. There we go. Grab light blue wool from the sheep farm. Stripped warped hive day, which means I take some warped fungus from the old nether tree farm, and then we can get the warped stems much faster from this new farm. I also got a ton of warped wart blocks from that, so I made some composters here to recycle all those back into bone meal. Now I just have to strip the hyphae. That is everything, so it's time to make the canopy for the first tree, which actually involved some surprisingly fun Litematica parkour. But that's not the most interesting thing. Let's talk about how I made the trees. To create the canopy, I used a sphere brush in World Edit that painted 70% air and 30% jungle leaves. Once that looked right, I replaced all the top blocks to the block I needed in the build, and then I started painting from the bottom with the block palette, masking the jungle leaves so I didn't replace any of the blocks I had already colored. And in the end, that looks like this. Let me grab the map and see if I did it right. Yo, that's a pretty good job. There are a few pixels that need fixing, but generally it looks good. There's one issue here. All the top blocks in this part are copper, but they need to be warped warts. Unfortunately, I messed that up in the schematic, so I have to fix it now. I just put them on top, but that still works for the design. Except for this one corner up here. Yeah, that's much better. So the concept for the trees works well. Let me build a bunch more of those all around the entire city. There's already a lot more detail to the build, but I have to clean up some of the mistakes on the maps. It's mostly some of the glow lichen that I missed. All the mistakes are now fixed, so the trees are done. It really does look like a proper city now. It's so cool in between those mountain ridges. But there's more work to do still. I want to get rid of the outer platforms and build the end zone walls up a little higher, with roofs on top and windows at the front and the back. So first, let's get rid of the blocks that we don't need. By bringing the walls in a little bit, the roofs will have some overhang, and we create some space for a few details underneath that overhang. Just place a roof on this one. Okay, the shape works, but it needs a little bit of variation. There, that side already looks a lot better. I don't want to use any other blocks here because I don't want to draw too much attention to this part of the build. But I will make this look like the front of a house. That looks alright. Now I can build the end zone parts of these all the way around the city. I made the roof slope down towards the middle to create some focus. But my acacia logs ran out. While I go and restock those, let's take a peek at the updated map to see what's going on. Okay, that looks pretty terrible. From the front, everything looks good. Although I do need a little bit of texture on the walls. I very deliberately didn't texture them fully because I don't want to draw focus there. Everything in the design is pointing towards the middle. What the heck, dude? I was just talking about not drawing focus. Leave me alone. To add some detail, I need composters and copper trapdoors. But I'm out of copper. Let's see what I can find in this cave over here. Now I just need to space out the trapdoors because I want exposed trapdoors. Put the composters in place, the trapdoors, and then finally the roofs. I finished all the tough roofs, but this green terracotta one doesn't really work. Every block in the game can have 3 different color shades on the map to display light and shadow. Traditional map art uses that feature, which is why these look so funky in your world. But here, it ruins my map because it's such a clear distinction. I can fix that though. I just need to get some more terracotta. If I dye this lime and place it on the shadow side of the roof, it looks much closer on the map than when it's all green. These platforms at the back will be flat, call it a trick from Grian's book. The map looks great. This is the final form for the map art. But I believe I can make the build quite a bit better. That front wall is absolutely massive and way too flat. But the curved roof provides some cover to build underneath without messing with the map pixels. And then I want some decoration in the front. I already cleared out some space, but there's a tricky block I need here. 21 diamond blocks. I'm not sure if I still have diamond ore to craft those, but they're quite important. If I have it somewhere, it's still in my old storage room. Oh, that's not quite what I meant. These are actually part of the room, but this made me remember something else. I think I have the diamond blocks in the castle's secret treasury. Let's take a walk through the main castle entrance, down the winding staircase, through the throne room, and then a further winding staircase down into the castle dungeons, where we find a hidden button that puts us into the lower part, where a secret entrance gets me to the treasury. And I was not wrong, there's diamonds here. There we go, that's 23, so I get to leave 2 of these blocks here. Let's get out of here. I can sneak back onto the main pathway and head back to the build site. And with those 21 diamond blocks and a couple other things, I can make this. Now that is a cool front of the build. I said I would make a build that was cool up close and on a map, and I think I have it. But there's one more added bonus step to really finish it off. Step 5, enter the end. But in a cooler way than that. First things first, let me dig this all the way down so we have some room to decorate. This is a good foundation. Let's use moss and bone meal to get rid of the deep slate. Now I want to get rid of his water, but that's a bit problematic because I actually need it. Without the water to kill my momentum, I pop a totem once I get to the end. Because Minecraft velocity is interdimensional. I know, it's weird. I've come up with a redstone system that can dispense the water for me. These walls will work as the wire to get the signal down, and this double piston extender can push a redstone block out to the dispenser to activate it, without having a whole redstone system visible in the tube itself. I don't know if the timing is right, but I guess I'll just have to test it. Double totems and a god apple. Let's go. Okay, I actually took 8 hearts of fall damage there with the resistance from the enchanted apple. A bit of tweaking got the redstone timing right, but it would be cooler if it doesn't look like I'm falling into an end portal. I've never actually done this before, but there's a trick to get rid of the portal frames using red mushrooms. This is awesome. Yo, a single block is very subtle. Now let's decorate this bottom room with endstone. And then I'm building a spiral of redstone ore going up. I need some more regular redstone ore though. Maybe I can find it in the water caves. Nowadays, regular redstone is pretty rare, but it's not that hard to find a lot of lapis. So if I pick all of that up, I can probably transition from deep slate redstone ore to regular stone lapis ore. Okay, this is it. It is done. Everything is ready. I dropped through the single portal block that was left, into the end, through the overworld portal, and I made my way back to the royal bedroom of Winter's Hold, where I had made a secret addition to the bedroom. This honestly turned out way better than I thought. It's a small miracle that I even found space for the redstone anywhere in the castle. But check this out. With Lightmatica assistance, I had managed to finish the combined storage and map art project in record time. But even so, day 6000 was rapidly approaching, and it was a daunting project that I still wanted to tackle. Even so, When I returned to streaming on day 5822, there was only one logical place to start. I had to go on an adventure to collect hay bales from villages. After all, I had a debt with the Looneyville Bank that needed to be settled. It was on that quest that I ran into the biggest mushroom island I have ever seen in my 4 years of playing Minecraft. And when some witty champ in chat called it the Mooshroom Mainland, I was immediately sold on the name. There was one issue though. This is the kind of cool place in your world that you'd love to be able to return to. And while I decided to start using coordinates for portals, figuring out where this place was in my world, well, that's a different story. This is exactly the kind of thing that is really cool to figure out without pulling up your F3 screen. I actually have a dedicated sugar box with all the things I need. But that pathfinding sugar was accidentally left behind in my storage room. So I had to go down into the caves under the Mooshroom Island to find components to craft a compass, make a map, and be able to find my way back here later. Using my location on the map and the fact that the compass pointed to world spawn, I figured out that I must have been south of spawn. To make sure I didn't forget, I added that information to the name of the map. Before heading home, I enjoyed the pretty incredible feeling of a completely empty cave. Since this place is directly under the Mooshroom Island, no hostile mobs can spawn here. I quickly mined all the diamonds I'd spotted before heading back home. After my hay bale adventure and finding the Mooshroom Mainland, I must have been thousands of blocks away from spawn though. So I decided the quickest way back was probably through a nearby stronghold. Once I made it back, I returned all the hay bales I had stolen from my builds to their rightful place, and then I went back to Winter's Hollow to fix the biggest problem with the cave at this point in time. There is still an absurd amount of torch spam all over the walls. With the help of MiniHUD, the same mod that displays my day counter, I can display a light level render. It will show the light level per block and color it red when it's spawnable. Since I'm removing all the torches, I will put a cobble deep slate slab on top of every smooth basalt block that displays a number, to make every single one of those blocks spawn proof. The immediate difference was massive. I should honestly have done this ages ago. Before the next stream came around, I spent many hours giving the same treatment to the rest of the cave, so we could do something more interesting together on stream. That plan completely derailed once the stream started, because chat decided to have a field day and I got peer pressured into upgrading my tools to netherite first. I know, that's a very weird statement after 5,861 days in a world, but I recently broke some of my pickaxes and I've actually never had a netherite shovel since I was way too busy memeing with this stat. Either way, chat thought it was time to get ancient debris and I decided I was happy to oblige. After a little while in the nether, I had all the ancient debris I needed, so I smelted it up, upgraded my tools, and then, to compensate for having full netherite tools for the first time, I immediately downgraded my armor to diamond. I'm kidding, of course. I did that to get rid of the knockback resistance on my netherite kit, so I can now start using wind charges in my gameplay all the time. Alright, so much for all the distractions, it's time to finish up this blue cave. First, I want to change the temporary snow blocks in the entrance arch into tough variants, with a strip of crying obsidian showing through behind walls and stairs. I was in my element working on the arch, so ready to do all of it in one go, but I barely had time to get started, before someone dropped an absolutely killer idea in stream chat. What if I made an iceboat racetrack in that blue cave? It was already covered in packed ice anyway. I had barely finished reading the comment, and I was already in my creative world to figure out a way to be able to get up blocks without a plugin or mod. But slime block launchers seem to be a very viable strat. So I cooked up something really cool.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
While the cave is cool now, actually no pun intended, there was still the issue of the blue area ice pillar feeling very out of place. So I went to a nearby ice spikes biome to study the shape of the ice spikes. And truth be told, I was really surprised at how short and stubby most of these are. My mental image of the biome was actually quite far off. After building a couple in the blue area of Winter's Hollow, I realized that the spikes in a naturally generating biome are actually pretty much all the same in their design. And the only variation is the height of the pillar underneath. With that realization, I got in an absolute flow building the ice spikes, and progress accelerated quickly. To make sure the spikes were spawn-proof, I added blue stained glass panes, and finally snow around the base of the spikes to integrate them into the terrain around it. And just like that, the main ice pillar that hides my farms away didn't look nearly as lost as it had before. With the ice spikes done, the area in between the green and blue started looking painfully empty though. So I decided to make a bunch of giant shelf mushrooms out of warped nylium and netherrack to fill that space. At the top of that stream, a massive thunderstorm happened that let me collect 30 mob heads over at the ocean window. And after the storm wrapped up, there were only 99 days left to get to day 6,000. That meant there was at least enough time left to decorate another part of the cave. It was time to tackle the orange area next. I had always planned for a lava fall on this side, but getting it to look cool turned out to be a bit of a puzzle. After filling up a lava pool at the top of the cave and letting a 1 block wide stream fall down, it was pretty clear that a single straight line wasn't going to do it. But I also didn't want it to flow out too wide. Splitting the stream worked, but that was exactly what I was trying to prevent. One big chunk of a single color that isn't cut up, especially one this bright, it just ruins the balance of the cave as a whole. So I cut it up by putting some basalt chunks in between to cut up the flow. And that worked really well. It took a bit of fine tuning, but halfway through the stream, I liked what I saw. So I switched back to the teal area in between green and blue to build a walkway going into a small cave tunnel. This walkway starts from the greenhouse in the green area, which is a research building from where the peculiar cave environment is being investigated by the civilization living down there. The walkway ended up cool, but the 90-degree angle doesn't work too well for me. So we'll have to build something in this corner later to not make that stand out as much. But for now, I decided to leave the teal area at that and go back to the orange one to finish it up for the time being. I still had a pretty cool idea that I wanted to integrate. So I figured out the design for a large industrial lava transport tube in my brand new storage room, took all the materials I needed from there, and headed over to my base to build it up. With another part of the cave looking a lot better and only 60 days left until we hit the next big milestone, you would think I'd double down on the cave grind, right? I guess that makes a lot of sense, but this wouldn't be a loony video if I didn't run into another major distraction before we completed another leg of the journey. After spending a few days getting the diamonds that I needed for the fireworks show on day 6,000, a strong and sudden urge came over me. I had a feeling that I should go back to the Mooshroom Mainland. Finding it wasn't as straightforward as I had thought, because it took way too long for the map marker to show up. But after a bunch of exploring, I came across a tiny mushroom island with an ocean monument right underneath. And that's when I knew that we were close. Just as day 5,946 turned to 47, I found what I was looking for. With just a little bit of time left in that stream, I cleared a couple mushrooms to collect some blocks needed for decoration in the yellow area under the base. I want to use the inner texture of the brown mushrooms as terrain blocks there. And then I set out on a quest to bring a villager from a nearby village to the mushroom biome so I could make him a cartographer and check for a nearby trial chamber. Unfortunately, that first villager didn't work out. He wouldn't sell me a trial map. So the next day, I went back to get another one. Fingers crossed that he would be more inclined to help me out. Happy to say, the spirit of RNGesus was strong with this one, and the map pointed to a trial chamber just off the coast. And that gave me all the reason I needed to stay at the Mushroom Island for a little while longer. I chopped down some mushrooms to kill the time, but I was here to feed my new addiction. I'll be honest with you, I got hooked on the breeze balls. They're fluffy, they make me go high, and I just can't get enough of them. So I looked into breeze farms, and they absolutely suck as a concept. Because you need a player to activate the breeze spawner after its 30-minute cooldown. Since I almost never AFK, and certainly not for hours, I figured the best move was to just clear the Mooshroom Island for some future use of either the blocks or the island itself, and run to the trial chamber to fight breezes at both of the spawners every 30 minutes. Aside from that one intermission where chat made me build a mushroom block lighthouse, I remained pretty locked in on jumping and farming my precious breeze ball. And then, the most loony thing happened. A really dumb idea hit me. With 31 days, or 10 hours and 20 minutes left to get to day 6000, I somehow thought that it would be a good idea to get a blue axolotl at the Mooshroom Island. I could make a shallow lake to breed the axolotls, fish tropical fish from the nearby Warm Ocean, and just hope that I'd make it in time. There was just one small issue. I forgot how small of a chance 1 in 1200 was. So after spending 2 of my 10 hours breeding about 200 axolotls, I realized that there was a pretty good chance I wasn't going to make it. The worst part about that, the very next day, I had the 6000 days milestone stream. Not the best stream to be breeding axolotls all day, hoping for a miracle. And right as I was losing faith, the miracle actually happened. I hit the 1 in 1200 odds on breeding attempt 290 or so. I honestly can't tell you how relieved I was that I didn't have to make the diabolical decision between aborting the whole attempt and risking an entire anniversary stream of breeding blue axolotls to not even get one. But Bluey, first of his name, was the beginning of the bloodline. And I ended that stream with a small group of blue axolotls. That's something I never managed to do in Minecraft before. But the next day, I was going to do something for the second time. It had taken me 2 years and 11 months to run it back. 6000 days without sleep in a world that I think is miles ahead of what Season 1 was. But I think you should be the judge of that in a minute. Before we launch the fireworks to celebrate the milestone, I want to show you one last thing. Every book in this library is filled with a bunch of your names, grabbed from chat during one of my streams. Over the next few months, we will add a lot of those books, because I will be live 5 times a week on Wednesday through Sunday on this channel. We are just 560 days away from beating my Season 1 record, and I really look forward to sharing them with you. For now, there's just one thing left to do, to wrap up another 1000-day journey. As the fireworks shot up into the air and filled the night sky above Winter's Hold, I looked over at my stream chat going crazy, and I had a small moment of silence and a smile all to myself. Because I realized, this is the last fireworks show before we celebrate beating Season 1. The next time we do this, it will hit very different. And if you're still here but not subscribed yet, you probably should. It only gets better from here.